tonight on 24 conflicting narratives in Tehran and Washington about the negotiations.
Now, we are in talks, and I say talks because talks with Iran are not like talks with Switzerland, okay? They're very different.
Rubio and Trump urge continued Iran diplomacy, even as FARS reports message exchanges halted for days. Amid regional tensions, the U.S. pressures Oman to sever ties with Tehran. Concurrently, Bahrain prohibits its citizens travel to Iran and Iraq. And Israel's emphasis on continuing attacks on Hezbollah positions in southern Lebanon. Reports are being published about Beirut's efforts to find a political solution.
From the Iran International Studio, this is 24 with Fardad Farahzad.
Hello and good evening to Iran International viewers in Iran and around the world. The U.S. President wrote on social media on Twitter an hour ago that reports about the halt in negotiations with the Islamic Republic are incorrect and wrong. Meanwhile, the U.S. Secretary of State, speaking in Congress, referring to the ongoing negotiations, said there's a possibility that Tehran might have agreed, unlike in the past, to discuss parts of its nuclear program with Washington. At a Senate Foreign Relations Committee meeting, Marco Rubio declared the opening of the Strait of Hormuz as the primary condition for negotiations with Iran. Meanwhile, in Tehran, the IRGC-affiliated FARS news agency stated that message exchanges with the U.S. have been halted for several days, contradicting claims by American officials.
Now, we are in talks, and I say
we are currently in complex talks with Iran, which, unlike negotiating with Switzerland, necessitates a mediator. Significantly, there's an unprecedented possibility that soon something major could happen. Iran has agreed to negotiate about parts of its nuclear program, topics it previously refused to discuss even a month or year ago. This willingness is remarkable. However, it doesn't guarantee an agreement will ultimately be reached that is acceptable to the U.S. Senate or the American people. This incident allows us to assess how far Iran is willing to escalate. However, the fragmented nature of the Iranian government means responses are delayed. We hope conditions will soon allow the Strait of Hormuz to open, paving the way for specific negotiations on defined topics. The goal is to achieve results that are both acceptable to us and implementable. If this process doesn't yield results, we will still be facing the issue of Iran's nuclear program. But what Iran will no longer have is a conventional military shield it can hide behind.
Behind any longer.
Our correspondent, Marzia Hosseini, is at a U.S. Congress. Lawmakers there question the state of the war, the Strait of Hormuz, Iran's nuclear program, and their complex interconnections during this session. That's right, but perhaps the most important point was this joint message we received today from the U.S. Secretary of State and President Trump himself. Both of these individuals contradicted the Islamic Republic's claim. We know that the Islamic Republic says the exchange of messages has stopped, but both Trump and Mr. Rubio said that negotiations are ongoing at this very moment. Mr. Trump said we've actually been exchanging messages daily for the past 4 days. Mr. Rubio stated that the U.S. is negotiating and exchanging messages directly with Mojtaba Khamenei, the Islamic Republic's top person. Despite security concerns forcing Khamenei into hiding, he's increasingly involved in these negotiations, even exchanging messages currently. Rubio emphasized that this direct, high-level engagement represents a significant challenge and explains why the talks have dragged on for so long. Because every message we send will take days for them to respond to, due to internal divisions within the Islamic Republic. Mr. Marco Rubio, who I'm actually watching right now answering questions from Republican and Democratic lawmakers, also mentioned 2 other points, specifically regarding the conditions of these negotiations. He said the issue of reopening the Strait of Hormuz is actually not a condition, but a precondition, because the Islamic Republic must reopen the strait and shouldn't expect any concessions from the U.S. government in exchange for reopening the Strait of Hormuz. He said if we do give any concessions, they won't be financial concessions in exchange for reopening the Strait of Hormuz. Specifically, it will be regarding the Islamic Republic's nuclear programs and commitments. He emphasized, saying they don't have anything called a navy right now. He said there are a few small boats with machine guns mounted on them that they've sent into the ocean, but their navy is gone, although they still have access to drones. It was a tense session. Democratic senators tried very hard to put pressure on Mr. Rubio. Senator Booker said to Mr. Murphy, "Are you happy now that you're begging the Islamic Republic to come back to the negotiating table?" Mr. Rubio became very agitated. He emphasized, "We're not begging, they're the ones begging." He said, because when Iran's economy was so bad that thousands of people came out into the streets, now consider that. Iran's economy is now much worse than it was then. They have to spend billions of dollars just on reconstruction, and that's why they're begging us. That Senator Murphy, also from the Democratic Party, asked a question about the Strait of Hormuz. He said, "The fact that the Strait of Hormuz was closed, which you're now reopening, is your fault. You attacked Iran." And Mr. Rubio responded, saying, "Whatever the reason, the important thing is that we will absolutely not allow the Islamic Republic to extort or profit from an international waterway." Let's hear this part of his remarks.
That is a predicate to anything else happening.
The Strait of Hormuz must be reopened, which is the primary condition for Iran's oil to pass through. Iran must declare it will no longer fire upon or threaten commercial vessels. While we prefer a negotiated resolution to this simple issue, other options exist if the strait isn't reopened. Many ships avoid the strait not because they've been shot at, but due to fear of being targeted. Iran must explicitly announce the strait's reopening, confirm it will not collect tolls, commit to cooperating in clearing any mines, and assure it will cease firing its ships. Once the strait is operational, the next phase requires Iran to agree to specific negotiations concerning the highly enriched uranium stored deep inside a mountain.
Deep in a mountain somewhere.
And Fardad, the point is that Mr. Rubio, who is speaking right now, this is his first public appearance in the US Congress. If we remember, 2 or 3 days after the war, he came here and held a program. He gave a non-public explanation, but this is the first time he's sitting in front of lawmakers and, answering these questions with such critical intensity. Upon entering the session, Marco Rubio faced demonstrations from individuals protesting his Cuba policies, leading to arrests. Interestingly, Rubio's opening remarks completely avoided any mention of Iran or a potential war. Instead, he strategically shifted the State Department's focus, which was present to request funding from the U.S. Congress, to America's achievements in the Western Hemisphere, specifically in Venezuela. This emphasized his regional priorities, diverting attention from other geopolitical concerns, despite the initial protests against his positions. But as expected, this session, which is specifically for the budget, was largely drawn into the topic of Iran. The budget itself, though, is challenging because this $38 billion that Mr. Rubio is requesting is much less than the budget requested last year, because Mr. Trump has cut the State Department's budget by 30% and increased the Defense Department's budget by 50%. And one more important point to mention at the end. We expect a vote to be held here today for the resolution to end the war in Iran. And we expect that if this vote actually happens and there isn't renewed opposition to it, this resolution will pass for the first time. I mean, I heard this off the record from one of the lawmakers this morning, although we haven't received his email yet. It's due to internal tensions here in Congress. But it's an important day overall in the U.S. Congress, alongside the remarks made by Mr. Marco Rubio, and a resolution that will likely be put to a vote.
Thanks, Marzia Hosseini, U.S. Congress colleague. Hossein Alizadeh, international affairs analyst from London, is with us. Mr. Alizadeh, it seems it's not just Iranians. American lawmakers are also confused by the Trump administration's approach. Is this pressure just to open the Strait of Hormuz? Is opening the Strait of Hormuz contingent on canceling Iran's nuclear program development? What can we really gather after this long ceasefire about what exactly the current Trump administration's doctrine is regarding Tehran? Yes, you said, everyone is confused. Perhaps the best and most concise assessment was made by the German chancellor, who said that the Trump administration had no strategy for entering the war, nor does it have a strategy for exiting the war. And look at this, a very major U.S. ally is making such a statement publicly, not in closed-door meetings. So now, we're witnessing this. We're witnessing that really, where should we take our cues from? Should we hear it from Mr. Trump's mouth, or is it from the Secretary of State, or from Remarkably, the primary American negotiators, like Mr. Wyckoff and Kushner, alongside Mr. Vance after his Islamabad trip, remain completely silent. Communication largely comes from President Trump, with only slight contributions from the Secretaries of Defense and State. Nevertheless, one thing is undeniably clear. By accepting, announcing, and indefinitely extending the ceasefire, a significant strategic shift has occurred.
Trump and Netanyahu have become resentful, meaning, let me clearly remind you that on the day the ceasefire was discussed, Mr. Trump said that we're going for a ceasefire. But Mr. Netanyahu said that we are ready to continue the war with Iran for even a year. Here, you can really see the difference between the two leaders. Trump, has limited the war to about 6 weeks, but Netanyahu is ready for even a year. The phone conversation, notably released by Axios, unequivocally revealed a very tense atmosphere between the two sides, underscoring significant underlying friction. It's clear that former President Trump is intensely focused on his midterm elections, desiring a calm, peaceful, and war-free environment. He believes such stability is crucial for voter confidence and his party's electoral success. Conversely, Mr. Netanyahu, also on the brink of his own demanding election campaign, strategically needs a major war achievement. This imperative likely underpins actions such as the repeated incursions into Lebanese territory, which have reportedly led to the seizure of large parts of that land, serving to project strength and consolidate support among his electorate. He goes to that historic castle and raises the Israeli flag. Well, these are factors that can bring him votes. Here you see two leaders have completely different views on the issue of war in the region. One needs peace, Trump, and one needs war, Netanyahu.
But even before the war, if you remember, many reports, especially from Axios and especially from Barak Ravid, were being published about the tensions between Mr. Trump and Netanyahu. But eventually, we saw them start one of the most important wars of recent years together. Is it possible that this is a show war and there's actually another project underway and the two sides are more aligned than what's being reflected in the media?
The political world is truly full of buts and ifs, making outcomes inherently unpredictable. Your suggestion that this might be a show war cannot be denied. This perspective aligns with the strategic explanations I provided for Donald Trump and Benjamin Netanyahu's 6-month plans. This critical period involved the US hosting the World Cup for 2 months. Immediately after, it moves into congressional elections, which are highly sensitive for Trump. His victory is crucial. Otherwise, the opposition party has many detailed plans brewing to challenge him significantly. On the other hand, I also clarified, emphasizing that among all Israeli candidates, there's universal agreement. They must confront and fight with Tehran, with Hezbollah, with Hamas. None of them advocate for abstaining from conflict. Instead, all concur that Israel must utilize its overwhelming force, a strategy Prime Minister Netanyahu is already implementing. This persistent unrest, whether created by Lebanon or significantly by Tehran declaring we have stopped nuclear negotiations, complicates matters for Mr. Trump. He is actively seeking an exit from the current tumultuous situation and desires psychological peace. This quest for stability is particularly relevant given upcoming events like the World Cup and crucial congressional elections, where a calm international environment could be politically beneficial. I no longer think, with these assumptions I've explained, that this is a show war. No, in my opinion, there is a fundamental and strategic disagreement between the two countries. Mr. Netanyahu needs war, and Mr. Trump needs peace.
Thanks, Hossein Alizadeh, International Affairs Analyst, London. One day after the Islamic Republic's attack on Kuwait and concerns about continued insecurity in Persian Gulf countries, Anwar Gargash, diplomatic advisor to the UAE president, said that regional countries, including Yemen, Lebanon, and Iraq, are paying the price for the Islamic Republic's ambitions. Mr. Dargash, referring to the necessity of respecting national sovereignty, emphasized that no country should threaten the security, stability, and prosperity of other countries. Simultaneously, Bahrain's Interior Ministry said that due to the continuation of the tense situation, travel for Bahraini citizens to Iran and Iraq is currently prohibited. Meanwhile, according to the Wall Street Journal, the Trump administration has increased pressure on Oman to cut ties with the Islamic Republic. The report states that Washington currently considers Muscat's neutral stance to be contrary to its interests. According to this report, America has threatened Oman with sanctions and even military action. Shahram Holdi, a researcher of Middle East history and international relations from Ontario, is with us. First of all, let me ask you about Oman's stance, Mr. Holdi. One of Mr. Trump's very harsh statements had surprised many, as he had even spoken of bombing Oman. This neutral role of Oman, well, has often been beneficial to the Americans. They've been a mediator between Tehran and Washington many times. What has happened that now it seems Oman has somewhat incurred the wrath of the United States?
I send my greetings to you, dear Mr. Farsad, and to the brave people of Iran. Perhaps the most important issue that the Omanis are facing is that the United States of America feels that Oman does not only play the role of a mediator, but also, given the arrest of specific networks of the Revolutionary Guard or IRGC intelligence, or intelligence forces of the Islamic Republic in Kuwait, UAE, Bahrain, from the time the U.S. and Israeli attack began until this current period, where we are in this limbo of ceasefire and war. I firmly believe that the arrests under discussion would not have been possible without the crucial intelligence and operational assistance provided by the Israelis. While these claims are currently circulating through unverified sources, the intricate web of intelligence networks across the region, coupled with specific information that reportedly reached President Trump, paints a compelling picture. This data strongly indicates that Oman is not operating as the honest and impartial mediator that the United States has historically expected it to be in regional conflicts and dialogues. This pattern of questionable neutrality is not unique to Oman. It also significantly applies to Pakistan. Islamabad, too, has, in my assessment, received the appropriate consequences and punishments from the Gulf Cooperation Council countries due to its diplomatic stances and actions. These repercussions ultimately compelled Pakistan to send its troops seemingly for defensive purposes, likely as a strategic move to restore financial support. Oman is, in my opinion, in a very complicated situation. It's kind of the closest country to the Islamic Republic geopolitically. And I think Americans are worried that Oman has also become an intelligence bridgehead for the Islamic Republic.
Why aren't we seeing better cohesion among us, the Gulf Cooperation Council countries? When Bahrain, for example, was experiencing internal tensions during the Arab Spring, we remember even the Saudis sent military forces to Bahrain. But now it seems like every country is doing its own thing. The Emiratis have a much more serious approach towards Tehran. The Saudis are silent. The Bahrainis, well, they're a bit worried about their own Shia population. The Omanis are trying to maintain their role as a mediator and go-between, and the Kuwaitis are constantly taking hits, but they don't seem to have much leverage to respond. Why isn't a unified voice being heard?
I think the most important reason is that the Gulf Cooperation Council never truly became a security, military, and defense institution. Its core mandate remained largely non-military. This deficiency was particularly evident after 2001, when the urgent need arose to combat terrorism, and then to counter the escalating maritime mischief of the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps, IRGC, Navy. As you and your viewers will certainly recall, the IRGC Navy notably captured several British sailors in response to these pressing threats, including human trafficking, terrorism, and the Islamic Republic's provocations. A dedicated joint naval headquarters was formed in Bahrain. However, the Gulf Cooperation Council itself remained completely uninvolved in this. So, unfortunately, and let me just remind you, Qatar's suspension or expulsion in 2017, whatever term we want to use for it, showed that the Gulf Cooperation Council isn't fundamentally a united council, because the Omanis weren't necessarily even in agreement with Qatar's suspension back then, and the Kuwaitis were also looking at the whole thing with a lot of skepticism. What happened was, I think, Qatar's return and then this war showed that the Gulf Cooperation Council can't really become a united and cohesive unit. And the Emiratis, just 2 months ago, when there was an emergency meeting, they condemned all the members. It seems to me that Bahrain and the UAE, given their strategic negotiations with the Ukrainians to develop an advanced drone defense shield, and their intense security cooperation with the Israelis, are practically separating from the Gulf Cooperation Council. These significant bilateral engagements suggest a pronounced shift in their foreign policy priorities and alliances. Oman, I think, seems to be a completely independent country in this regard, consistently pursuing its own distinct diplomatic path compared to all of them. And I believe that astute observers of geopolitics, a perspective certainly echoed by some, are increasingly recognizing a significant shift. Oman is poised to re-emerge as a nation defining its identity and strategic interests more prominently within the vast framework of the Indian Ocean. This echoes its historical status as a formidable maritime and East African empire during the 18th and 19th centuries, rather than being solely confined to the dynamics of the Persian Gulf.
Thank you, Sharam Holdi, researcher of Middle East history and international relations from Ontario. As diplomatic efforts continue in Beirut to find a political solution with Israel, a senior Hezbollah official told Agence France Presse that the group does not agree to what he called a partial ceasefire. This comes as, according to reports, the Lebanese government has proposed a 60-day plan to the U.S. for Israel's gradual withdrawal from Lebanese territory, which includes the retreat of Hezbollah forces north of the Litani River. According to these reports, after Israel's withdrawal from the country, the Lebanese government is also seeking a complete resolution to the issue of disarming Hezbollah. On the other hand, in Israel, the country's defense minister has announced that if Hezbollah's attacks continue, he will target southern Beirut. Earlier, the White House had announced that Israel and Hezbollah agreed to a cessation of hostilities after a phone call between Donald Trump and Israeli and Lebanese officials. Our correspondent, Ardavan Rouzve, is with us from outside the White House. Ardavan, we're hearing conflicting and different reports about the ceasefire situation. We even heard a report about a tense call between Mr. Trump and Netanyahu regarding this very ceasefire. What exactly do we know about what's happening on the ground, both south of the Litani River and in the capital Beirut?
رودخانه لیتانی هم در پایتخت بیروت.
It might be safe to say that one of the biggest challenges Mr. Trump is facing right now is this complex triangle of conflict between Israel and Hezbollah. The issue of, well, resolving the agreement with the Islamic Republic, and Mr. Trump's role in resolving both of these, which according to many experts has created a complicated and intricate situation for Trump. On one hand, we know that Nabi Berri, the Speaker of the Lebanese Parliament, has mediated and announced that Hezbollah is completely ready to reach a peace and ceasefire agreement. On the other hand, a key figure has emphasized his personal commitment, even offering to be considered a guarantor for a potential agreement. This aims to advance peace efforts and stabilize the volatile region, signifying a serious diplomatic push. However, despite these high-level assurances, clashes in northern Israel and southern Lebanon regrettably remain ongoing. Israel's representative at the UN reports a staggering 9,000 rockets fired across the border since the initial ceasefire, with hundreds of drones recently flying over northern Israel skies, highlighting persistent security challenges and continued volatility. But on the other side, the UN is also saying that Israeli operations have continued in various areas, near the Litani River, and also in southern Lebanon, southern Beirut in the Zahiyeh district. Reports from Lebanon's Ministry of Health say there have been a number of casualties. And on the other hand, the issue is that it seems both sides, meaning at least Hezbollah, despite having declared readiness, and also Israel having declared readiness, are still not ready for a definitive peace. the fourth round of talks has been held here, or actually it hasn't reached a definitive conclusion yet. The news hasn't come out for us to know what negotiations took place this time. But at the same time, it seems like things are continuing there. Mr. Trump is saying that he stopped the Israeli army's ground attack on the southern Beirut area, and those forces turned back. But Israel is saying that if any kind of operation happens in the north of the country by Hezbollah, Zawiya will be the main target, and southern Beirut will face similar attacks. On the other hand, the main problem here is the apparent rise of significant tensions between Mr. Trump and Mr. Netanyahu. We know at least 2 phone calls were exchanged between them last night, signaling a rapid turn of events. The first reportedly involved relative agreement for peace, offering initial promise. However, the second call was exceptionally challenging and contentious, escalating to the point where Mr. Trump reportedly, at one juncture, called Mr. Netanyahu crazy. This diplomatic friction is particularly striking, given that concurrently, many Israeli parties believe Mr. Netanyahu is now demonstrating considerable flexibility. Why? Before this, during Biden's term, he had announced that he would make any necessary decisions himself. And now political groups in Israel believe he's kind of following Mr. Trump's policies. But why is this situation complicated for Mr. Trump? Mr. Trump is using the available opportunities. He has 3 issues ahead of him. First off, Mr. Trump needs to act in a way that the relative security he's only managed to create in the Middle East right now, besides the war with Iran, attracts Arab countries, gets their views aligned. The current situation is a very fragile one. So he needs to maintain this. The second point is that he really needs to be able to turn it into an agreement that isn't this fragile. And the third point is that the Islamic Republic has made negotiation, agreement, and every condition contingent on the Lebanon issue being considered. And even the Speaker of the Iranian parliament has now said that they must be ready for an attack on northern Israeli territory, if necessary. As a result, with the current conditions, all of this is intertwined. While it's very fragile, it's possible that the number of Israeli attacks has decreased, but ultimately, the current situation is such that it doesn't seem like they're in a state of definitive agreement. And also, on Israel's side, no one seems happy with the relationship between Mr. Netanyahu and Mr. Trump. Finally, an hour ago, it was announced that a second proposed U.S. peace plan, the first plan, the one Mr. Rubio had given, wasn't accepted at all. It seems Hezbollah has accepted the second plan that Mr. Trump proposed, but they said only and only if any agreement is definitive, long-term, and includes the evacuation of Israeli forces from Israeli territory within a 60-day time frame.
Thank you. Ardafan Ruzde, a reporter, is with us from outside the White House. Ben Sabti, a researcher on Iran and Israel, has also joined us from Tel Aviv. Mr. Sabti, how is it that Israel has carried out so many attacks against Hezbollah, especially after October 7th? It's killed Hassan Nasrallah, destroyed a large number of Hezbollah members through pagers, bombed Zawiya multiple times, and also Hezbollah's interests south of the Litani River. Syria is also out of Iran's hands now, so they can't use that proxy. Iran itself is caught up in its own war and problems. It can't support Hezbollah like before. But still, Hezbollah is a big, major headache for Israel, and it doesn't seem like the Israelis, despite the central government's indirect support in Beirut, have managed to, if not destroy Hezbollah, then at least turn it into a very small problem.
Yes, your points are completely right. And after a pause that occurred in Hezbollah's operations because of, the elimination of Hezbollah leaders at that time on September 24th, we see that they've used the time they were given to rebuild themselves. Of course, in terms of the number of missiles, for example, or technical issues, they really took a big hit. Before those events in the war, they had about 140, 150,000 missiles with different ranges at their disposal. But now they have about 20,000 missiles. This is an achievement in itself, too. The reoccupation of Israel and America with the Islamic Republic has seemingly given Hezbollah a vital window This period allowed the Lebanese militant group to restore its forces, rebuild command structures, and re-establish units, significantly bolstering its capacity against Israel. Unfortunately, Hezbollah, much like Hamas, seems to have adopted an effective strategy by closely emulating Israel's methods for military resilience. When commanders are killed, Hezbollah demonstrates concerning efficiency in rapidly replacing them. New leaders are quickly trained, often achieving proficiency swiftly. This rapid succession means Israeli efforts to neutralize leadership are met with new capable figures emerging, posing a persistent challenge. Hezbollah has done the same thing and has actually copied it from Israel, something that doesn't exist within the Islamic Republic itself. And also financially, we see that the Islamic Republic has, by hook or by crook, finally managed to send money to Hezbollah. And this is the most important issue, because if salaries and money don't reach Hezbollah's individuals, they really will scatter from around their leaders. And through Turkey and through Qatar, millions of dollars from the Iranian people's money have still flowed towards Hezbollah in Lebanon. Hezbollah's budget before October 7th was $750 million a year. It has now surged to $1.25 billion. This substantial increase means some people might be even more attracted due to pressing financial issues, even the dire situation developing in Lebanon. As for the Lebanese government itself, there's no hope they'd even want to, or truly be able to, stop Hezbollah. They have no weapons, serve no power. The Lebanese army is merely a phantom army. The Lebanese government can't even handle its own persistent garbage problem, let alone clear this area of Hezbollah. That's why, really, until this force is destroyed and its ties with the Islamic Republic are completely severed, there's no choice but to confront them.
Mr. Netanyahu has once again emphasized and reiterated that he has the ambition to overthrow the Islamic Republic if the Islamic Republic's proxy group in Israel's neighborhood, which even the Lebanese government isn't too happy with, is still standing despite all these difficulties. How realistic is it really that Israel could overthrow the Islamic Republic, which is now
بینانه است که اسرائیل بتونه خیلی دورتر از مرزهاش جمهوری اسلامی
threatening regional nations and seizing the Strait of Hormuz, even from a great distance?
Look, theoretically, and in terms of planning, Israel's strategy, and I'm not saying this just because I'm here, was superior. It was better to go after the head of the snake, striking a severe, debilitating blow directly to the regime's core leadership and infrastructure. This approach was far more effective than merely dealing with its soldiers or henchmen and proxies. The logic was robust. If the ultimate source of power was hit, then its extended militant branches like Hezbollah and Hamas would inevitably lose vital support and direction, eventually causing them to completely wither away. But unfortunately, what happened and is still happening is that Mr. Trump's administration always goes halfway and then stops, whether it's on the issue of Hamas or the Islamic Republic itself or Hezbollah. Look, the one who connected this Hezbollah war to the issue of Iran is actually Mr. Trump. This had absolutely no connection to each other. And the one who caused this issue to become complicated, to become convoluted, is Mr. Trump. What connection did Israel striking Hezbollah previously have to the issues of the Islamic Republic and so on? He came and brought up the issues of the Strait of Hormuz, which, again, that too was a shortcoming of the U.S. Army, letting the Strait of Hormuz fall into the hands of the Islamic Republic, even though in their drills, their first mission in the Persian Gulf was to maintain the Strait of Hormuz. This is what has been revealed, what has become clear, but they fell short, and because of this, Israel has now become a regional police force and has to control all fronts again. And on the other hand, pressure is also coming from Mr. Trump. I think these evil forces, whether it's the Islamic Republic or Hezbollah, will eventually make a mistake because of their very nature, and will cause war to flare up again, say towards the Islamic Republic itself, or towards Hezbollah. And that's when Israel will seize the opportunity and really strike more blows, especially to the leaders of these two ominous forces. Also, Mr. Roman Gavman, the new head of Mossad, he really believes in destroying the leaders of these kinds of terrorist organizations, or the IRGC commanders. So we might see some movement in Mossad regarding this as well.
Thank you, Ben Sati, Iran and Israel researcher from Tel Aviv. Two groups affiliated with the Islamic Republic in Iraq announced that their forces have separated from the Popular Mobilization Forces and joined the central government. Asaib al-Haq and Kataib Imam Ali stated in statements that this action was taken in line with national aspirations. At the same time, the U.S. Embassy in Iraq welcomed the support of the coalition of Shiite groups for surrendering weapons to the government and described it as a step towards removing insecurity from Iraq. More details from Tarosk Sadiki.
Two Iraqi armed groups affiliated with the Revolutionary Guard Corps, Asaib al-Haq and Kataib Imam Ali, confirmed in official statements on Tuesday that they will begin the process of separating their organizational structure from the Popular Mobilization Forces, PMF, and joining government institutions under the supervision of the Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces. In fact, these statements mention that committees have been designated for this purpose, to register weapons and logistical items. This process took place after the coalition of political and armed groups affiliated with the Islamic Republic, namely the Coordination Framework, officially confirmed that they would respond to the repeated requests of the Marja'iyya in Najaf and support the issue of weapons monopolization. We know that after this statement by the Coordination Framework, the U.S. Embassy in Iraq also welcomed it. However, within Iraq itself, concerns and skepticism still persist. While we know that parties within Iraq have supported this decision, this monopolization of weapons by these groups, there are still groups like Iraqi Hezbollah, like the Najaba movement, and other phantom groups that are very influential within the Popular Mobilization Forces, PMF structure, affiliated with the Revolutionary Guard Corps, and they have recently officially announced that they will not surrender their weapons under any circumstances. As a result, it is confirmed within Iraq itself that the government of Ali Zaidi still faces a major challenge regarding the complete monopolization of weapons by the government and disarming armed groups.
A medical breakthrough and the discovery of an experimental drug in the fight against pancreatic cancer after decades of research show promising results in combating this type of cancer. The director of clinical research at the University of Arizona Cancer Center says that with the discovery of this drug, a historic day has occurred in the treatment of pancreatic cancer. The drug daraxonrasib, which is taken once a day, targets gene mutations that cause the spread of pancreatic cancer and extends patients' lives by slowing the progression of one of the deadliest cancers. Shahram Kordestani, professor and director of research at the Department of Cancer Studies, Pharmaceutical Sciences, King's College London, is with us. Dr. Kordestani, thank you for accepting our invitation. There's been a lot of reaction, especially to this drug in recent days. Could you give us a clearer picture of how this differs from past treatments and how promising it could be, not just for pancreatic cancer, but for other cancers as well?
Yes, as you said, this drug generated considerable excitement and discussion, even when they presented the study results at the ASCO conference, the world's largest oncology conference this year. All the attendees, over 20,000 people in the hall, erupted into applause. The profound reason is clear from the results. For example, those who received the drug, their average increase in lifespan was about 13 months, compared to just over 6 months in the control group. While its full significance might not yet be widely appreciated, there's a profound development unfolding that is indeed generating considerable excitement and hope. Central to this is a gene named RAS, which is known for its highly malignant nature. Unfortunately, for patients whose cancers harbor this particular gene mutation, effective treatment options are exceedingly limited and notoriously difficult to administer. This challenge isn't exclusive to pancreatic cancer. RAS mutations are frequently identified across numerous other aggressive malignancies, including various gastrointestinal cancers, specific types of lung cancer, and even certain blood and other solid tumors, all of which typically exhibit a very poor response to existing therapeutic interventions. For years, no effective treatment could properly target the notorious RAS genetic mutation in various cancers. This significant breakthrough now provides an improved way to treat numerous malignancies. Crucially, it offers vital hope for advanced pancreatic cancer patients, especially when the disease has spread extensively and proven unresponsive to conventional chemotherapy regimens.
که دست اندازی کرده به جای دیگه و به شیمی درمانی پاسخ
Unfortunately, this disease has been exceptionally deadly, historically leaving us with very limited effective interventions. Now, however, there is profound hope that by integrating additional treatments and creating robust combination therapies, we can transform this aggressive disease into a more manageable chronic condition, offering advanced patients a better quality of life and a relatively longer lifespan.
Dr. Kordestani, something that actually seems very promising are these genetic manipulations being done in genes using new technologies like CRISPR. There's a lot of hope for their incredible precision and potential to treat previously incurable diseases. It's not just this drug either. Right now, especially in the last year or two, we're seeing a lot of new drugs trying to get FDA approval, much faster than before, often due to accelerated pathways for critical therapies. Just a few days ago, Mr. Elon Musk attended a conference and was saying that we're moving from the traditional analog era into a sophisticated digital world for drug manufacturing, signifying a new era of efficiency and speed. With the substantial help of artificial intelligence and the development of artificially produced mRNAs, how truly promising are these medical innovations? And how much can patients who are currently suffering from severe diseases like cancer today reasonably hope that in the coming years, or even in the coming decades, these devastating cancers will finally come to an end and a definitive cure will be found for them?
Look, Dark Zone isn't genetic manipulation as we typically understand it. It's a targeted approach. The methods you mentioned, employing artificial intelligence for advanced screening to match specific drugs with particular genes, have greatly accelerated new treatment discovery. AI rapidly analyzes complex biological data, identifying optimal drug candidates and shortening development timelines for targeted therapies. Crucially, cancer isn't a single disease. We're dealing with dozens, if not hundreds, of distinct types, each originating from specific molecular causes. Combating these very diseases therefore necessitates equally specific and precisely tailored treatments, pushing us toward truly personalized medicine. The prospect of reaching a point where all cancers are cured by one universal golden bullet remains beyond our immediate scientific horizon due to cancer's profound inherent diversity. However, the outlook for specific advancements is exceptionally promising. We anticipate that cancers diagnosed early, particularly when we apply precise, personalized treatment methods, will achieve almost complete recovery. This significant advancement is definitely within reach. Furthermore, for cancers identified at later, more advanced stages, where complete prevention or elimination might still be challenging, the goal of transforming them from a deadly disease into a manageable, treatable chronic condition is equally attainable. This would provide patients with a good, extended lifespan, effectively managing their disease long term.
How much is this acceleration in finding new drugs or potential treatments in sync with the administrative processes for drug approval? Because we know many pharmaceutical companies spend maybe sometimes as much, sometimes more, sometimes less than what they spend on research. They also spend on approvals from regulatory bodies.
Look, regulatory bodies have the responsibility to ensure the safety of drugs. We have bitter memories of drugs that, unfortunately, there are many in history that maybe the precise oversight that should have been done wasn't done on them. And later, some people are still, as they say, paying the price for the side effects they caused. Thalidomide was an example, and there were other drugs that came up. And because of this, these organizations act more strictly, especially concerning drugs whose preclinical studies haven't been fully completed. The idea that they would become more lenient, well, maybe that's not the right interpretation, but that they would have more speed. There are methods being used now that are called electronic twins. Well, you could call them virtual twins, since they're not real. And these can reconstruct a human, and you can perform stages of these tests on these twins, and it helps with speed. These kinds of methods can definitely help.
Thank you, Sharon Kordasti, Professor and Head of Research at the Faculty of Cancer Sciences and Pharmaceutical Sciences, King's College London. Thanks for watching tonight's 24 program. If you want to rewatch the full episode, it will be available later on Iran International's YouTube channel.